Hi there, Buick owners. Today in your 2016 Buick Envision, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's Diode wiring kit. This wiring kit is available in a couple of different combinations. No matter what, you're all going to get the wiring that you need to hook it up, as well as the diodes. The other additional components in these configurations depend on the type of tow bar that you have. You can get it with a coiled cable, which is for your standard tow bar. You can get a straight cable, which is for a tow bar that has channels to run your wiring down. And then you can get a hybrid cable that has a straight section as well as a coiled section, which is really good for extremely long tow bars like Roadmaster's Nighthawk. When flat towing your vehicle, there's 5 main components you'll need to get your vehicle hooked up and safely towed behind your motorhome. You'll need your base plate, which is the connection point on your vehicle where you'll attach your tow bar to hook it to your RV. You'll have your tow bar, which will hook to our base plate and to the receiver on the motorhome. You'll also have your safety cables, which is a supplemental connection in addition to the tow bar. Your diode wiring, which takes all the lighting signals from your motorhome and transfers them to the lights at the back of the vehicle. And lastly, your supplemental braking system, which will take the signals from your motorhome and the braking inertia and apply the brake pedal in the vehicle when you hit the brakes in your motorhome to help you come to a safe stop. Your diode wiring is going to take all the lighting signals from your motorhome and transfer them to the lights back here at the back of the vehicle. This way, when you're driving down the road, people behind you will know your intentions. This will also keep you DOT compliant in all states. The signals that you're going to get back here at the back are going to be your left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps and brake lamps. So every scenario that you can imagine, you're going to be able to portray that to those around you. The signals you're going to get are your left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps. Now, Roadmaster's diode wiring is my personal favorite setup for a flat tow because once it's installed on the vehicle, it'll be there whenever you need it. You just simply plug in like you would plug into any trailer, and the lights are going to be here for you. Some other options are magnetic lights, which will stick on the vehicle, but with those you have to set them up every time. You have to set them up on top, run the wires down and plug them in, and you got to remember to hook them up and disconnect them and everything. Again, this is just a plug at the front, and that's all you need. So I highly recommend the diodes because they're just going to work with every setup. You don't have to worry about having enough room, and the minor cuts that you make, if you follow along with us, we're going to show you exactly what to cut and where to splice to get them up and running. We'll begin our installation by routing the wiring. The best time to do this is right after you install your base plate before you put your fascia back on, because it's going to be a lot easier to route all of the wires. We start here at the connection point on our base plate where you would mount your 6-way connector. And from here, we just go right behind the base plate, behind our bumper beam, and we go over until it comes out right here. We then route it into the engine compartment through there, and then we go around the driver's side of our battery all the way back behind our coolant reservoir, and from there we drop it down underneath the vehicle. Our wire then comes down the firewall here, and we route it back, staying on the driver's side, routing it behind any factory wiring we can to stay near that, because we want to avoid anything moving, such as our steering or suspension, and anything excessively hot like our exhaust. Once we hit our fuel tank, we go above the panel here, and then we do come across just a little bit to about this point, and then we go forward from here just because it was easier to route. And we just stay right about here all the way back, and then if we just look straight up here, our wiring is going to come out there. You can kind of see it better right here, but it does just run right over there, and it goes behind underneath our plastic panel there. From there, it just routes back till we get here, and then we'll use some zip ties to just secure this up. But you want to leave it loose at this point because we do need to get our wiring now up behind our taillight assemblies. Before we get our wiring behind our taillight assemblies, we are going to take the green wire and we're going to separate that. You'll have 4 wires total here. You're going to have a green, a yellow, a white, and a brown. We're separating out the green, and I've already separated out the white wire because the white wire we're using as a jumper wire to go across to the other side. So you can see here where I separated out the white and the green wires. The green wire needs to run across to the passenger side while the remaining 3 wires go off towards the driver's side, and that's what you see here is these 3 wires. The white wire then, we used a section of it to continue from the white wire from the driver's side over to the passenger side, because we're using a portion of this white wire here as a jumper wire. That's why you don't see the white wire here where it goes towards the front, because we're running this over it. The way that I did this was after I separated the green wire, I then just took the green wire and I held it back on the loom, and I found the point where the green wire stops when going back on the loom, and that's where I cut the white wire so I could peel them off and they would be the same length when running over to this side. We now need to get those wires behind the taillight assembly, and in order to get them behind the assembly we do have to remove it. We got the lift gate open, which is going to reveal these two caps here. We're going to use a small flat bladed screwdriver to just pry the caps out of there. And then inside we're going to have two bolts that we're going to use a T15 Torx to remove. And then the entire assembly is just going to pull straight rearward. I recommend using a plastic trim panel tool, because you can kind of get between the seam there and help kind of pry it rearward. Once you get it to pop, this assembly is kind of a large assembly, so you do got to angle it just right. You got to clear the top first and then pull straight out on the bottom, because it does kind of slide into a groove. Then you can lift it up a little bit and we can get it out of there. You can see here this is the groove that it slid in here, so that's why you got to go back. And you also have to lift up because this ear does go down in there and clips into this little spot there. Now that we've got this removed, we're just going to press back on the red tab here, the lock tab. We can then press in an electrical connector and disconnect it. We'll then just set our taillight assembly aside. We're going to need to route wires behind the other side as well, so you'll perform the same procedures to disconnect the other side. And then the easiest way to get the wire up is to use a fish wire. We're using a piece of airline tubing, but a metal coat hanger, if you were to undo it, works really well because you can poke it down in there. And then we use electrical tape to tape it to the one side, and that allows us to easily pull the wiring up. So then we can just trim off our electrical tape, and we'll have the wires that we routed over. So on the driver's side here, we have our yellow, our brown, and our white, because we had already separated out the green, because the green needs to go to the passenger side. The way we separated it is you can just take your snips and just cut right in between the two wires, because once you've made your cut there, the wires actually just peel apart. And we'll just trim off some of this little excess here. If it does get a little messed up on the ends, it's no big deal. We'll just trim some of that off. And then we need to strip back each one of these wires. So now we got them all stripped back. We're going to take the brown and the white wire, and we're twisting these two together, because we talked about how we also had separated out a portion of the white wire, just a small chunk of it, because it's going to take our brown signal, which is our taillights, and the white's going to jumper that over to the passenger side so the taillights operate over there as well. On your diodes, you'll have spade terminals. These just pull off of there. They just pull right off. One of them is going to be yellow. This yellow one is for this circuit here. It has an extra large hole because we're going to accommodate two wires on this one. So we're just going to slide our spade terminals on and then crimp them down. And then on the yellow wire, that's going to get a blue spade terminal. And the rest of our wires are all going to get the blue. It's just that double one there, since we needed to jump that signal, that we use the extra large one. So now that we got these crimped on here, we need to identify the wires in our harness here. We're just going to go ahead and pull this back. Sometimes there's a tape on here you have to peel back. I've already kind of just peeled that tape off of there so we could more easily see the wires. Then we need to separate out the wires we need. We need the gray and yellow and the white and yellow wire. Those are the two we're going to focus on. And we're going to actually cut both of these wires. And then we're going to strip back each end of these wires. Our gray and yellow is our stop-turn circuit, and our white and yellow is our taillight circuit. On each one of these wires that you strip back, we're going to be placing a blue spade terminal. Now that we've got all of our connections made, we can take our diodes and start connecting them. The connector side is always going to go to the outside. This is going to go to our bulbs, so we're going to go ahead and plug that in. We're going to start with the gray and yellow wire. This is our stop-turn circuit for the driver's side, which means it's going to connect to the yellow wire that we ran up. But since this is gray and yellow, we want to make sure we connect these wires back together. So on the inside, the other end of our gray and yellow is going to go on there, and then our yellow wire is going to go onto the other end. This way we can send signals to our diode and out to our light. We'll then just take our other diode and we're going to do the same thing. The out is always going to be the connector side. We're going to reconnect the colors back together, so white and yellow, back to white and yellow. And our taillight circuit is for this one, so the brown wire with the white jumper is then going to go on to the other end. They can be a little tight getting them on there. Now at this point, they do have sticky adhesive on the back, so you can stick it to the inside if you want. But due to clearances on this particular one here, I recommend just taking the two diodes. We're going to peel back the adhesive. And we're just going to stick the two diodes together so they're not clunking around against each other, because it's so tight that these diodes aren't going to really rattle around back out here by themselves. So at this point now, we can go over to the passenger side. We're going to route the green wire and the other end of this white wire. Again, we held the green wire down and then cut the white wire at the length to match the green's length, so that way it's the same length when we route it to the passenger side. Then we're going to head over there and connect these wires. I'm now over here on the passenger side. I've already made our connections. You can see our white wire, our jumper wire, and our green wire ran up here. The wires we need to focus on that we're going to cut into on this side are the violet wire and the white wire with yellow stripe. On this side, the white wire with yellow stripe is our stop-turn circuit. So that's going to connect to our green wire. I know the white yellow on the other side was for the tail, but it does swap on this side. And on this side, the violet wire is our taillight circuit, so the white wire, our jumper, is going to connect on this side. Now that we've got these all connected here, we can reinstall our taillight assemblies in reverse order of how we removed them. When reinstalling your taillight assemblies, right behind the bulbs here is a decent pocket for your diodes to fit. So you can kind of take that diode pack and it tucks in fairly nice right there. We've got the rest of our flat toe components installed. We can reinstall our fascia in reverse order of how we removed it. So now we can take our wiring here. I like to leave enough excess to where if we want to ever add accessories, we can easily get this out. So I'm going to cut it about this point just so we can pull that connector out if we ever need to add accessories or make repairs. So we're just going to trim off the excess we don't need here. Then we're going to separate each one of these wires back by snipping in between them. And then once each one is separated, we can strip them. You also want to slide on your dust boot, because that needs to be on there before we make our connections. You'll find that on the back side of your 6-way connector. And now we just need to start connecting these wires to our connector. The connector unscrews to secure the wires. We have 4 here. We're going to be using the one labeled GD, which is ground, which is our white wire. So we'll open that one up. And then as we go around, next is TM. We're going clockwise around it. TM is our brown wire, which is our taillights. Next is S, we'll skip. Then our T, which is right turn, which is our green wire. And LT is next, which is left turn, which is our yellow wire. And then our center pin we're not going to use. That's usually used for a charge line circuit if you wanted to add one. So now we're just going to poke the wires in to their respective location and then tighten those screws back down. Now that we have each wire connected, on the back side of our connector, we're going to keep out moisture by using dielectric grease. This is going to ensure that nothing gets inside there, no moisture gets in there, no corrosion occurs, so we have long-lasting operation. You can get dielectric grease here at eTrailer. We want to be fairly generous We want to be fairly generous with our coating of dielectric grease so that way nothing gets in. Once I get the grease on there, then I like to take the dust boot, slide it down on there, and then I'll use electrical tape to seal the boot onto the connector, and then I'll also put it on the other end to seal up the wires inside the boot. We can then secure our connector to the base plate mounting location. The hardware does come provided with the base plate, and we'll tighten it down with an 8mm socket. The connector is just plastic, so we don't want to over tighten it. Now that we've got this all connected up here, we only have one more step. We just got to get our ground wire connected. Remember the white wire? We had trimmed off some before. We do have to connect that white wire to something here at the end. So here we are in our engine compartment. You can see there's a ground stud located right here, just in front of the battery. Here's our wiring right here that we had routed around. So we need the white wire from where it's connected to the connector at the front of the vehicle that we just hooked up to be connected to ground. So we're going to go ahead and fold the wire here, and this will let us easily snip in between the two to get them separated out. And then we can cut just the white wire only. And our only concern here is with the white wire that's going towards the front. This wire that's going towards the back, the white wire, it's really just dead wire. You can leave it in there. It's not connected to anything. On the other side, it's connected to nothing because we had used a portion at the back there as our jumper. So it's just dead white wire from here to the back. This white wire, though, we do need to strip back. And we're going to use the included ring terminal that comes in our kit to connect it to it. Just slide your ring terminal on. Crimp it down. And then our ground stud here has a nut on it that can be removed with a 10mm socket. So we're just going to loosen this up. Remove the nut. Slide our ground wire over the stud. It is a tight fit, but it will slide on there. If you can get it on just enough to get the thread started, then the nut will draw it on the rest of the way. Now that we've got everything reinstalled, we want to make sure that everything's working properly. I've got it plugged into our tester box here. But when you're doing this at home, you can simply just plug into the back of your RV and then operate your signals and make sure that they're mimicked at the back of your vehicle. You want to make sure you have your left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps. With everything working properly, we're ready to go hook up to our motorhome and hit the road. And that completes our look at Roadmaster's Diode wiring kit on our 2016 Buick Envision.